The tears fell like rain on my pillow for 3 consecutive nights. But let me tell you something about rock bottom. It makes an excellent foundation for building something extraordinary. My name is Clara Whitmore, and this is the story of how I transformed my deepest wounds into my greatest weapons. I was 33 when I met Ethan, a financial analyst with perfectly pressed shirts and a smile that could disarm nuclear weapons. He had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room, like every word you spoke was poetry worth memorizing. In those early days, he would trace circles on my back as we lay in bed, whispering about how much he admired my strength, how he had never met someone so resilient, how my layers made me fascinating. "You are like a rare vintage wine," he would say, his breath warm against my ear. "Complex. Aged by experience. Absolutely intoxicating." But here is the thing about men who fall in love with your strength. They often run when they discover what it actually cost you to build it. I had survived a childhood that would have broken weaker spirits. Parents who viewed children as burdens rather than blessings. A divorce that left me financially devastated and emotionally shattered. Years of rebuilding myself from nothing, piece by painful piece. I did not parade my trauma around like a badge of honor, but I did not hide it either. When you have walked through hell and emerged with your dignity intact, you learn that shame is a luxury you cannot afford. For almost a year, Ethan seemed to understand this. He would hold me when the nightmares came. He would listen when I needed to process something difficult. He made me believe that my past was not a burden but a testament to my incredible capacity for survival. But people change. Or maybe they just reveal who they really were all along. The shift began when I started talking about therapy. Real therapy. The kind where you dig deep into the wounds that shaped you and learn to heal them properly. I wanted to build a future with vulnerability and honesty as the foundation. That is when I watched the man I loved begin to disappear. Suddenly, our conversations felt strained. He would check his phone when I spoke about anything meaningful. He started making excuses to avoid spending time together. The warmth in his eyes was replaced by something that looked disturbingly like irritation. "You are so heavy lately," he said one evening as we walked through the park where we had shared our first kiss. "Everything with you is so intense." I felt my heart crack, but I pushed forward. "I am working on healing, Ethan. I thought you wanted me to be healthy." "I do," he said quickly. "But does it have to be so much? So complicated?" The word complicated hit me like a physical blow. I had spent my entire life being told I was too much, too emotional, too damaged, too difficult to love. But the worst was yet to come. It happened on a Tuesday night in his apartment. The one with the minimalist decor and the perfect lighting that made everything look like a magazine spread. We were sharing a bottle of wine, and I was telling him about a breakthrough I had experienced in therapy. He set down his glass and looked at me with eyes that had already said goodbye. "Elena," he said, his voice carrying the weight of a death sentence. "I need to be honest with you." My blood turned to ice. "What is it?" "I just do not think I can be with someone who comes with that much baggage." The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. I felt my soul leave my body. "I want someone light," he continued, each word a knife twist. "Carefree. Someone who does not drain my energy with all this emotional stuff." I sat there in stunned silence, watching the man I loved reduce my entire existence to an inconvenience. To luggage he was not willing to carry. Then he stood up, walked over to where I sat frozen in shock, and kissed my forehead like I was a sad story he was closing the book on. "I hope you understand," he whispered. "I hope you find someone who can handle all of this." And then he walked away. Just like that. I drove home in a daze, pulled into my driveway, and sat in my car for 2 hours, unable to move, unable to process what had just happened, unable to believe that someone who claimed to love me could discard me so easily. When I finally made it inside, I collapsed on my bathroom floor and cried until I had no tears left. Then I cried some more. For 3 days, I was a ghost. I called in sick to work. I ignored my phone. I lived on crackers and tap water, and the crushing weight of rejection. But on the 4th day, something shifted. I woke up angry. Not sad. Not broken. Furious. Who was he to decide that my experiences made me unworthy of love? Who was he to look at my survival and call it baggage? Who was he to make me feel ashamed of the very strength he had once claimed to admire? I got up, showered, and looked at myself in the mirror. Really looked. And I saw something I had forgotten was there. A fighter. I had survived an abusive childhood. I had rebuilt my life after a devastating divorce. I had turned my pain into purpose, my wounds into wisdom. I was not broken. I was not too much. I was not baggage. I was a goddamn warrior. And warriors do not stay down. I threw myself into healing like my life depended on it. Because it did. I finished my trauma therapy with a vengeance, peeling back every layer of hurt until I reached the core of who I really was. I rebuilt my self-esteem from the ground up, brick by brick, truth by truth. I quit the soul-crushing corporate job that had been slowly killing my spirit. The one where I spent 40 hours a week making other people rich, while my own dreams withered on the vine. Instead, I focused on something that had been my secret passion for years. My side business creating handmade luxury luggage and travel gear. Beautiful, functional pieces that told a story, that carried meaning. I called it Empress and Ivy. Every bag I created had a message stitched inside where only the owner would see it. Your baggage tells your story. Carry it with pride. Those words became my manifesto, my battle cry, my middle finger to everyone who had ever made me feel like my experiences were something to be ashamed of. I worked 18-hour days, pouring my heart and soul into every stitch. I studied luxury brands, learned about materials and craftsmanship, and discovered that I had a natural talent for creating things that were both beautiful and meaningful. The breakthrough came 6 months later. A travel magazine featured my work in an article about luxury luggage with a message. The writer called my pieces, therapy disguised as fashion, and emotional intelligence you can carry. Orders started pouring in. Real orders. From real people with real money, who understood that quality and meaning were worth paying for. Within a year I had celebrity clients. Actresses who loved the empowerment message. Business executives who appreciated the craftsmanship. Travelers who wanted their luggage to reflect their journey, not just hold their clothes. And then came the call that changed everything. A luxury airline wanted to collaborate. They wanted me to create an exclusive line for their first-class passengers. Bags that would embody the premium experience they were trying to create. I said yes before they finished the sentence. But the most beautiful part of this transformation was not the business success. It was not the money or the recognition or the validation from strangers. It was Daniel. I met him at a coffee shop 6 months into my business journey. He was a pilot, tall and gentle, with laugh lines around his eyes and hands that looked like they could fix anything. He was reading a book about trauma and resilience when I walked in. When he saw me looking, he smiled and said, "Research for understanding someone special." We started talking, and I braced myself for the inevitable moment when my past would become too much. When he would realize that dating me came with complications he had not signed up for. But that moment never came. Instead, he listened to my story and said, "Thank you for trusting me with that. It explains so much about why you are such an incredible person." He did not try to fix me. He did not treat me like I was broken. He did not flinch when I had bad days, or when old wounds reopened unexpectedly. He just made space for all of me. The light and the dark. The strength and the vulnerability. The triumph and the scars. "Your past does not define you," he told me one evening as we watched the sunset from his balcony. "But it definitely shaped you into someone extraordinary. I would not change a single thing about your journey, because it led you to me." When he proposed, he did it with a custom luggage tag instead of a ring box. The tag read, "Ready for the adventure of a lifetime?" I said yes through tears of joy. We got married in the Maldives. Just 14 guests. No drama. No complications. Just pure, uncomplicated love surrounded by the people who mattered most. The wedding was perfect, but the flight home was where the magic happened. We were flying first class, of course. My business was thriving, and I had learned that treating yourself well is not vanity. It is self-respect. As I sat in that luxury cabin, sipping champagne and watching my new husband sleep peacefully beside me, an idea began to form. A beautiful, petty, absolutely perfect idea. I took out my sketchbook and designed a luggage tag. One of a kind, made from white leather with gold foil lettering. On the front, Mrs. EP. On the back, thanks for the baggage. I made it luxury. When we landed, I went straight to my workshop and created it. Every stitch was perfect. Every detail was intentional. It was a masterpiece of craftsmanship and barely contained vindication. Then I mailed it to Ethan's apartment. No note. No explanation. Just the tag. Because sometimes the most powerful statements are the ones that speak for themselves. A week later, he messaged me on LinkedIn. Wow. You really made it, huh? I always knew you had potential. I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me wanted to unleash years of pent-up fury, to tell him exactly what I thought of his conditional love and his cowardly heart. But I did not reply, because engaging with small minds is a luxury I could no longer afford. Instead, I made sure my next sponsored ad ran on his feed. A photo of me standing on a runway beside my husband, wearing my custom Empress and Ivy carry-on and sunglasses that said too much? Good. The caption read, "Some people are afraid of depth. Others build empires from it. Choose your luggage accordingly." That post went viral. Thousands of women shared their own stories of being told they were too much or carried too much baggage. The comments were filled with stories of transformation, resilience, and the kind of love that does not require you to shrink yourself to fit. My business exploded. Orders came from around the world. Women wanted luggage that celebrated their journeys instead of hiding them. They wanted bags that said, "I survived," instead of "I am sorry." I expanded the line to include purses, briefcases, and travel accessories. Each piece carried the same message. Your story matters. Your experiences have value. Your baggage tells the world that you are strong enough to carry it. The irony was not lost on me. The man who rejected me because of my emotional baggage had inadvertently inspired me to build a luxury luggage empire. His cruelty had become my catalyst. His inability to handle my depth had pushed me to find someone who could swim in my ocean without drowning. But here is what I learned through this entire journey. I never needed Ethan to carry my baggage. I never needed anyone to carry it. I just needed them to respect it. To understand that my scars were not defects but evidence of my strength. That my complexity was not a burden but a gift. That my depth was not something to be feared, but something to be treasured. Daniel understood this from day one. He looked at my luggage and said, "This is beautiful. Show me what is inside." He did not try to lighten my load. He did not suggest I leave anything behind. He simply made sure I knew I would never have to carry it alone. And that, my friends, is the difference between a man who deserves you and one who does not. The man who deserves you will not ask you to pack light. He will not complain about your baggage. He will not make you feel like your experiences are inconveniences. He will help you organize your luggage. He will make sure it has wheels. He will carry the heavy pieces without being asked, and celebrate the beautiful things you have collected along the way. Because the truth is, we all have baggage. We all carry the weight of our experiences, our mistakes, our heartbreaks, our triumphs. The only difference is whether we carry it with shame or with pride. I chose pride. I chose to turn my pain into purpose. I chose to transform my wounds into wisdom. I chose to take the very thing that made me unlovable and turn it into the foundation of my success. Today, Empress and Ivy is a multi-million-dollar company. We have stores in 12 countries and a waiting list for our limited edition pieces. Celebrities carry our bags on red carpets. Business leaders use our briefcases in boardrooms. Travelers around the world carry our luggage with pride. But more than that, we have created a movement. A community of people who refuse to apologize for their journeys. Who understand that their experiences, no matter how painful, are not baggage to be hidden but stories to be honored. I get letters from customers every day. Women who tell me that carrying one of our bags reminds them of their strength. Men who say our message helped them understand their own journey. People who have turned their pain into power and their scars into art. This is what happens when you stop apologizing for taking up space. When you stop shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's comfort zone. When you stop believing that your depth is a flaw instead of a feature. Ethan was right about one thing. I did come with baggage. But he was wrong about everything else. My baggage was not a burden. It was proof of my resilience. It was evidence of my capacity to survive, to grow, to transform. It was the raw material from which I built an empire. And the man who truly deserved me? He knew how to handle first-class treatment. He knew that some things are worth the extra weight. He knew that depth is not something to be feared, but something to be treasured. As I write this, I am sitting in my home office, surrounded by prototypes for our next collection. Daniel is in the kitchen making dinner, humming off-key the way he always does when he is happy. Our luggage is packed for a trip to Paris, where we will be opening our third European store. My phone buzzes with a notification. Another order. Another person choosing to carry their story with pride instead of shame. I smile and close my laptop. Because this is what victory looks like. Not revenge, not proving someone wrong, but building something beautiful from the ruins of what almost destroyed you. Sometimes the best response to someone who cannot handle your baggage is not to argue with them. It is to pack it beautifully, carry it with pride, and board a flight to somewhere extraordinary. And if they want to know where you went, send them a luggage tag with your new coordinates. Because only people flying coach complain about luggage. The rest of us? We are too busy enjoying the view from first class. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales of transformation and triumph. Your support helps us share stories that matter and reminds others that their baggage is not a burden but a badge of honor. Hit that subscribe button and join our community of people who refuse to apologize for taking up space.